So, as some of you may know already, my grandmother's house is extremely haunted. I made a video about it on my own channel, so instead of talking about that, which you can honestly go to my channel and listen to it, I'm going to tell you guys something very exclusive that is not on my channel that happened to my family that has nothing to do with my grandmother's house. So we moved into this 2-story house, which is really weird because we normally couldn't afford such a luxury. It was a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood, and it was honestly too good to be true. So one of the first thing I asked my parents was, "Do you think this place is haunted?" They obviously said no. I mean, why should they believe that? They just got a fucking amazing deal on this beautiful house, you know? Why doubt it? They were terribly wrong. During the night, we would hear clashes of plates and silverware and the cabinets in the kitchen, which was really weird. And we had these L-shaped stairs that whenever we would go up them, we wouldn't want to turn the corner without turning the light on because we were all very scared that we would see something at the top. And one thing about that house that scared us so much is that sometimes we would hear people whispering our names. I remember one time in specific, I was sleeping on the couch in the living room because I just discovered anime and I was gonna fucking watch it all night in the living room. And I woke up in the middle of the night hearing my sister call my name, whispering my name in my ear. And I opened my eyes and looked and there was nothing there, which freaked me out, so I just kind of covered my face with a blanket and hoped it went away until I fell asleep again. Yeah, stuff like that happened a lot, and we never really talked about it until after we moved. And that house, 10 years later today, is still up for sale. They can't keep anybody in it, so I don't think we're the only ones.
One of the most awkward and bad jokes I ever told was when I was talking to my buddy one day. It was a pretty sad time, something happened to his family, so I tried brightening up his mood. So I told him the beginning of the joke. I was like, "Hey man," one man was staring at another man right in the eyes, and he looked at him and told him, "Hey, what you looking at?" And then the other man said, "I'm looking at you." So the man responded with, "Hey, how about you look up, up, down, down, left, right, right." And then the man responded with, "Okay, I've done that. What next?" And then he said, "All right, now that you look up, up, down, down, left, right, how about you put the contra code in?" And then the man said to him, "Oh, that was a pretty bad joke." And so I told my friend all of this to brighten his mood, and he didn't laugh. And he looked at me with a really, really bad frown. He was kind of pissed. I tried making him laugh, but I guess you can't make everybody laugh. I forgot to mention his grandmother was blind and she was dying of leukemia. One time, when Pandora was working the night shift as a casino janitor, her mother stopped in and spent an hour looking for her. She was walking around the casino saying, "Do you know where my daughter is? She's part of the cleaning crew. It's her first night being in charge. I wanted to see how she's doing and wish her luck." Pandora's mother said to everyone, from cocktail waitresses to security, and even a few executives. She eventually found Pandora, who was training a new employee. After getting Pandora's attention, her mother began to say things like, "Have you been eating well? Are you showering properly? How's your cat? I miss her." From over her mother's shoulder, Pandora saw the casino owners along with the director of the janitorial department heading toward them. The director politely told Pandora's mother that she couldn't visit at her work and interrupt her, to which her mother replied, "She's my only daughter, the last baby bird to leave the nest." The director replied, "Well, you're putting your baby bird at risk of being fired. Please do not disturb her, or I will have security escort you off the property." Her mother promptly shut up and left.
When Nixium was in 8th grade, school security saw him combing his hair and escorted him to the security office. They began to rant at Nixium for having a weapon. Apparently a tool meant for grooming your hair is a deadly weapon. They then proceeded to search his backpack for more weapons. And they found his spare comb! The police were called and Nixium's combs were taken away from him and never given back. He was forced to sign a behavior contract, given 3 weeks of detention, and had to go to a shock program, which is boot camp for misfits. I can't believe this is real. I hope this is real. Oh, there's only one more sentence. Oh, jeez. And all for bringing a comb to school. Oh, jeez.
When Sweet Commando was about 14 years old, he and his brother would go to Walmart, and they would look for any loose Legos on the ground. He honestly thought that if he found something on the floor out of the box, it was free to take. They were there for about half an hour when a couple of people noticed them looking under the shelves. They came over to Sweet Commando and asked, "What are you guys up to?" He answered honestly that he was looking for dropped items. What he didn't notice, though, was that one of those people was the manager at the store. He told Sweet Commando to give back the Legos they found so that he could take them to management. He then proceeded to lecture them on why you can't take things just because they aren't in the box. Sweet Commando was embarrassed that he was stealing without realizing it, but also a little upset that he didn't get to keep all the Legos. After that, he never took something again without paying for it.
When Dolan was 6 years old, he and his brother were messing around with a bunch of balloons and an air pump. They were having heaps of fun blowing up the balloons and throwing them around. Then, Dolan got the brilliant idea to shove 2 balloons under his shirt. His brother recognized that this was pure genius and did it too. Just at this moment, their mother walked past, saw that they were pretending to have boobs, and grabbed her video camera. She filmed them dancing up against each other and rubbing their inflated chests. This footage is lying in wait, ready to embarrass them at the next family get-together.
When Legna was younger, he dated a really cute girl. He called her his little raccoon because of the way her hair framed her face. Legna was at her house one day just hanging out, listening to music, and he started getting hungry. So he asked her if she had anything they could snack on. She went to the cabinet in the kitchen, got a box of Swiss cake rolls. They each grabbed a package of 2, started eating them. Between bites, she asked Legna if he wanted to see a trick. She then proceeded to put an entire roll into her mouth, chewed it up, and then slowly spit it back into her hands. Staring with jaw dropped, Legna wondered, where is this going? It turns out where it was going was back in her mouth. Legna laughed a little, nervously, and ever since then he always responds with a resounding no when someone asks if he wants to see a trick.
Hellbent had a 5-year-old brother who always got attention. It got to the point where his mom hardly ever gave him any attention. She would always tell him that she was busy playing with his little brother whenever he needed to ask her a question. One day, they were outside playing on a slip and slide. Hellbent wanted to turn, but couldn't get his mom's attention. So he decided to do the only logical thing he could think of. He picked up a large chunk of broken concrete and threw it at his little brother. The concrete hit his brother on the head, splitting it open. He had to be rushed to the hospital where he got staples for the injury. Hellbent got into serious trouble, getting sent to bed without dinner only after getting his ass spanked.
One time, Tullup was working the night shift at a gas station when a strange man walked in. The man walked right up to the counter and said, "Hey, you got any, microwave food?" Tullup nervously pointed to the frozen section, and after 20 minutes, the guy returned with a pack of microwavable mac and cheese. As Tullup processed the sale, he discovered the credit card the guy was using was stolen, and worried that the guy might be dangerous. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 20 police cars showed up outside of the store. Some officers came in shouting, "Hands where we can see them!" The weird customer suddenly pulled a gun on Tullup, but Tullup shouted, "Fuck no!" and kicked the gun out of the guy's hand. The cops swooped in and arrested the man. Although Tullup was a hero, he was so freaked out that he quit the job the next day.
A couple years ago, Mikhailum dated someone who was cold-hearted. One day, she went to the university that he attended. While he cleaned his room, his ex looked around and began to look at some pictures. She came across a picture of Mikhailum hugging a guy and flipped out. She yelled so loud that his neighbors could hear. She pushed him into a chair and made him text his close friends to ask them to come by ASAP. When they did, his ex showed them the picture and called Mikhailum a cheater. After a lot more yelling, one of his friends told her that it was actually Mikhailum's cousin in the picture. Mikhailum reached out for the picture because it had sentimental value, but instead of admitting fault and handing him the picture, his ex threw it at him. She sulked for the rest of the day and wouldn't leave until he apologized for embarrassing her.
One time I was riding on the bus, and there was this kid that lived next to me that rode on the bus too. His name was Drew. And you see, back in the day, we used to play Halo 2 all the time. Now, I was a better Halo 2 player than him, and man, he just loved to brag and lie that he was better than me at Halo 2, and everybody would believe him because he knew a ton of people that rode our bus and I didn't. So one day we're riding on the bus and he's telling everybody about how just last night he was destroying me in Halo 2. Now, I denied this and said, no, it's not true, but nobody believed me. So you know what I did? As soon as we got off the bus, I was so angry because of all of his lying. I grabbed him by the backpack, wrestled him down into the grass, and with everybody watching, including the bus driver, I proceeded to beat the living tar out of him. His mouth was bloody. His nose was bloody. He had bruises on his chest and on his sides. Oh, I got in so much trouble. But man, it was worth it.
When Spinal Palm was 15, he was forced to go shopping with his mom at the mall. Being the edgy teenage introvert he was, he hated shopping. They spent around 5 to 6 hours looking for clothes his mom found interesting. The whole day mainly consisted of Spinal Palm waiting outside of the store for his mom to finish her shopping. He ended up hating the whole thing and rode the entire car ride home with an annoyed expression. His mom took notice and wanted to cheer him up, so she decided to buy him some McDonald's. They made it to the restaurant, where Spinal Palm ordered what he wanted and patiently waited at the window. While they were waiting, his mom thought it'd be funny to take out a pair of underwear that she got from Victoria's Secret and dangle it in his face. At that moment, the man in the window came up and laughed at what was going on. Spinal Palm just took the food and ate in the car in silence.
Spinal Palm's girlfriend always hated his Elmo impression despite how good he was at it. So one day, as he was going down on her, he decided to pull a little prank. Just as his girlfriend was getting ready to climax, he thought it'd be hilarious to yell into her cave in his Elmo voice.
Wow, it's so dark in here!
His girlfriend immediately kicked him in the face, but it was so worth it. A few years back, Melissa tried lucid dreaming and was finally successful. Everything was fine for about 10 minutes, then she started to see tall, silhouetted figures with glowing white eyes following her around, and she could hear faint whispers. As the minutes went on, there were more and more of them until there was about 50 figures. She tried to fly away in her dream when all of a sudden she fell to the ground, and they swarmed her. She woke up, but several of the figures were standing over her bed in the real world. She was completely unable to move or scream. One of them slowly moved its head close to her ear and whispered in her own voice, "You've made a big mistake," before finally fading into the darkness. She hasn't had a single dream since.
Nixium's parents told him that if he didn't go to bed, a very tall man with no face would watch him through the window until he fell asleep. Almost a decade later, the urban legend Slender Man popped up and all of the memories rushed back to him.
When Dolan's brother was 12 years old, he went to a roller skating rink with his school. At one point, he really needed to use the bathroom, but he didn't want to take his skates off. He saw other kids doing it, so he figured it was no big deal. Within a few seconds, he slipped and fell backwards on the tiles. When he tried to get back up, he felt this excruciating pain in his left arm. The other kids just stared at him and walked away while he screamed on the floor. Eventually, he dragged himself out of the room and flagged down a teacher who saw his broken arm and called an ambulance. When Zaragamba was turning 21, his dad planned a huge secret party. He invited everyone from the family to come over so they could see Zaragamba get shit-faced. Now, Zaragamba couldn't care less about his birthday, so when the big day arrived, he didn't think twice about accepting an extra shift at work. He drove to work through the heavy rain and went about the day like it was any other. But while he was working, a repo man towed Zaragamba's car by mistake. Zaragamba was furious. He had to walk 3 miles home in the rain. Then, to add to his bad luck, a jackass in a Mustang sped by him when he was almost home. The car hit a huge puddle, soaking Zaragamba head to toe. And on top of that, it caused him to slip and fall right into a huge puddle of mud. When Zaragamba finally got home, he went in through the backyard and threw off his shoes and clothes. Not wanting to track mud through the house, he came in through the back door stark naked. Suddenly, every single light in the house flashed on. Zaragamba looked around in shock as his parents, brother, 5 cousins, and 76-year-old grandfather were all standing there watching him. His oldest cousin saw him standing there, wet, naked, and caked with mud. She handed him a box of condoms and an 18-pack of Budweiser and said, "You probably need these more than I do if that's how you greet family." It was the single most embarrassing moment of Zaragamba's life.
One time, Dylan went to a party and ran into his ex. It was a bad breakup, so Dylan was worried she'd still be upset. But to his surprise, she seemed okay, and she was even mature enough to say hello to him. Later that night, when everyone at the party got drunk, Dolan's ex came up to him and said, "I have something to show you." She then led him to an empty bedroom and closed the door with her back to him. When she turned around, she had a huge knife in her hand and started screaming, "Why didn't you love me? Am I not pretty enough for you?" She started walking towards Dolan with the knife pointed at him. Luckily, Dolan's friend heard all the shouting and burst into the room to save him. He tackled Dolan's ex to the ground and took the knife from her. It was definitely the most eventful party Dolan's ever been to.
When Dolan was little, he lived right on a swamp. His parents told him not to play near it because it was dangerous, but a little danger never stopped Dolan. One day, while playing with hermit crabs, Dolan got stuck in some pluff mud. He kept trying to climb out, but this just made things worse. He ended up sinking right down to his neck. Dolan panicked and screamed for help. A neighbor and his dog heard him and came over to investigate. The neighbor got Dolan's dad and called the fire department. When Dolan's parents arrived, his mom was crying, but his pops just laughed and said,
"We told you to stay out of the swamp."
Fortunately, the fire department was able to pull Dolan out of his muddy grave. That was the last time Dolan played in the swamp. Okay, just kidding. Only now he tests the floor with a big stick before putting his foot down.
Ramona was riding the bus to school the day after she got braces on her teeth. She was also on crutches because she'd broken a kneecap. A little girl pointed at her teeth and asked, "Why are your teeth blue?" Ramona and her boyfriend laughed, with Ramona telling her that she was really an alien. Her spaceship had crash landed and her knee broke as a result. Despite being older now, the little girl still believes that Ramona is an alien.
Gergak took a vacation to Texas to see his dad and stepmom several years ago. They went to a park one day and Gergak went back to the car to get some snacks for a picnic. When he came back, he saw his stepbrother drop his pants and start peeing right in the middle of a huge crowd. As if that wasn't bad enough, his brother thought it would be funny to spin around while doing it. Luckily, Gergak was far away and didn't get embarrassed because nobody knew he was related. Though he felt really bad for the people who had to run to try and dodge the piss.
One day, Snoopy caught the bus home and got a very strange request. It started when a 400-pound man got on and took the seat right next to Snoopy. Even though the rest of the bus was empty, Snoopy tried to ignore him by listening to music, but when she put on her sweatshirt, her earbuds fell out and the overweight man started talking to her. He rambled on and on about his day and then all of a sudden asked Snoopy if she would marry him. When she said no, he said, "I'll give you $10,000 if you do." Snoopy again said no, but the man kept insisting. He then upped his price to $20,000, then $50,000, then $1 million. Snoopy put her earbuds back in and tried to ignore him for the rest of the journey. Back then, she was new to catching the bus, but she knows now all about the weirdos you meet on public transport.
Chima was eating mozzarella sticks at a pub named Humperdinck's with this one guy. For some reason, she said, "Your stick will spray mozzarella after humperdinking me." She then bit off a piece of the mozzarella stick and cheese oozed out everywhere. Pretty sexy, I know.
Civil Spider once got a weird request that turned out to be a huge success. He worked at a pizza place as a waiter when a family came in to celebrate their kid's birthday. Since the kid was a Pokemon fan, he wanted a Pokeball pizza, but Civil Spider didn't know what that was. The father told Civil Spider to put pepperoni on one half, white cheese on the other, goat cheese in the middle, and black olives for the lines. The family loved it, and other customers heard about the idea, so they started asking for the same. Thanks to that kid, Poke Pizza is now a regular menu item every July.
When Snoopy and Gooby were little, they played a rough game of tag at their grandma's house. Snoopy was chasing Gooby around a big ash tree. They were laughing and having lots of fun, until a distracted Gooby went face first into the tree. She went off wailing to the kitchen where her mother and grandma were having tea and muffins. When Gooby told her Nana what happened, Nana put her on her lap and gave her lots of cuddles, muffins, and sweets. Snoopy wouldn't have minded this, Except Gooby then turned around and grinned at her. This made Snoopy really jealous, so she hatched a crazy plan. She went over to the big dresser in her room, grabbed onto the ledge, and with all her strength, banged her head against the dresser. Her vision went weird and she saw stars. She then stumbled over to Nana and said, "Oh, Nana, my head hurts." Instead of telling Snoopy off for injuring herself, Nana sat her down on her lap and gave her treats as well. Snoopy tried this tactic a few more times, but it never worked again. She deliberately fell out of a tree because she was jealous of her sister and wanted attention. When she thinks back on this behavior, she's very embarrassed.
When Spincess was in Girl Scouts, her troop threw a massive party. She was a pretty shy kid, so she mostly just sat at the back holding a teddy bear. As the night went on, she watched in horror as one of the older scouts puked in the middle of the room, and then somebody slipped in the puke and fell into a small group of girls that were standing near a snack table and pushed them over. One girl fell and banged her chin on the punch bowl, which spilled all over the table. Everybody was confused and crying, and Spincess just sat there, glad that she was not a part of the shenanigans.
Snoopy was 11 when her friend offered to take her to the fair. She accepted the offer, not knowing that her friend's 13-year-old brother was coming as well. When they got there, they went on most of the rides. Eventually, they arrived at a ride that went really high in the air, then slowly back down. Neither Snoopy's friend nor her brother wanted to ride it, but Snoopy wanted to impress her friend's older brother. So she went on the ride with all smiles. As soon as it started moving, she freaked out and started to tear up. She felt like she was constantly about to fall out of the ride. For the next 4 minutes, she just focused on trying to not cry. When she got off, she found out they were both nervous for her because she stopped smiling. So her attempt to show off just ended up making them worse.
Doopy was 9 years old. She went to one of her friend's house for her birthday. It was the first time she had ever been to this friend's house, so she was just exploring the place as the party went on. Eventually, she had to use the bathroom and had her friend's mom pointed out to her. She walked carefully over to the bathroom and shut the door. But while she was in there, she noticed one of those huge Utz cheese ball containers nearly full to the top with chewed up gum. That's when she decided that if her friend wants to see her, she'll be coming to Doopy's house instead.
Spinal Palm tried to impress his crush by doing a backflip for her. He did it at a school dance, and he had the whole thing set up. His best friend was the DJ, so he turned off the music and everyone formed a circle around Spinal Palm and his crush. That was the moment he asked her out, and then landed the backflip right on his face. Spinal Palm broke his nose and his wrist, but she still said yes, so it pretty much worked out.
Doopy was in the 3rd grade. She had a mean substitute teacher named Miss Collie. One day, Miss Collie ordered the whole class to go outside and practice their aerobics on the grass. Doopy, the good little student, took off her shoes and joined right in. Fortunately, it was springtime, so there were a lot of bees around. Doopy accidentally stood on one and felt a sharp pain in her foot. This was the first time Doopy had ever been stung, so it was pretty traumatic. She started crying and Miss Collie yelled at her to stop. She called Doopy stupid for taking off her shoes and sent her to detention for a whole week. Miss Collie later became the regular teacher for an entire month. Every day she gave Doopy a hard time saying, what are you gonna cry? Is this work too hard? Just like that bee sting? Doopy wished the bee would just sting her in the face. The weirdest thing Tulip ever got paid to do was when his girlfriend, Spinces, paid him $30 to spank her. He didn't know why she wanted him to do it, but she said if she did it, she would not only give him $30, but her PS4 that her mom bought her. Not being one to judge, Tulip went along with it. After about 10 minutes of spanking her, she looked at him with tears in her eyes but told him to keep going. Tulip kept spanking her for 10 more minutes until she told him to stop. He left her house with $30 and the PS4. The night she called him and said, "Hey, I need some treatment. Can you come over tomorrow? I have $30 more." That still goes on to this day, and Spencer still won't tell Tulip why.
When Snoopy was younger, she used to wear a purple backpack to school. One day, her uncle thought it would be a great idea to pick her up from school because he hadn't seen her in a long while. He parked in the middle of the schoolyard, and you could smell the booze on him a mile away. He saw Snoopy and yelled, "Dora the Explorer, is that you?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Hi." He then gave her a really awkward hug before she walked off, as if she would get in the car with her drunk driving uncle.